Good evening, wandering and wool gatherers, and welcome to the 120th episode of Wanderings and Wool Gathering. On tonight's episode, we invite back to the show Braxton Cosby from Starchild Comics and Cosby Media Productions. He recently launched 4 comic series to join their book publishing line of 16 novels covering the same characters. Those comics join an interconnected superhero universe, so it is a totally immersive experience. If you happen to miss that episode, here's a bit of a tease to show you what you missed. Perhaps it is not playing. Let's try this again. Well, I will find that and show you in a little bit. Technical difficulties, I apologize. And as I said, tonight, Braxton is dropping by to talk about the Broken series. And it is being funded through Kickstarter, so he's going to talk about that a little bit. Can't wait to find out what it is all about. And joining me is Metalhead Monday.
Hello, hello.
Hey, did you enjoy that video?
Yeah, that was great.
I loved it. That was the best. So
super high def too.
Yeah, it was great. It worked earlier, oddly enough, when we weren't on the air.
Of course it did.
Oh, it always works that way. Anyway, my apologies. We will get that going, I promise.
We're batting 1,000 with on shows with guests.
I think I can get it to share a different way, and I'm going to do that. But before I do that, I'm going to introduce our guest, Mr. Braxton Cosby. Hey,
how you guys doing?
Welcome.
Thanks for having me back on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. And honestly, I'm just mad because I don't even get it. I don't know.
We did a world premiere of our friends. You know, they put out an album, or they're going to put out an album. Mm-hmm. We did the world premiere, and we had all kinds of snafus with that one.
It always works that way, right?
Yeah, it's just embarrassing.
Sadly, it does. But anyway, we're glad to have you. And I do have another video that I am sure is going to work, and we'll highlight that one later to promote your big project. So before we get to that, let's catch up a little bit. So what has it been like since you launched the first 4 books?
Man, it has been crazy. You know, I tell people all the time that, you know, I got this vision. You know, here we were sitting with 16 novels last year with these 6 authors who worked on them and had all these superhero stories. And we were trying to figure out what we're going to do next to kind of expand on what we were already working with. And that's when we decided to do comic books. We all said, hey, man, we're writing superhero stories. And, you know, the next natural progression was to maybe try comics because we're all comic book fans. We like superheroes. So, you know, why not? So we tried it. And lo and behold, we ended up getting it funded. So that was like fantastic. So that vision has carried over because I've done about 6 conventions this year, and they have moved so many units. You know, we've used the comics as the link to get people interested in the novels, you know. So because our world, the Cosby Media Productions dedicated superhero universe, because it's so vast, you know, it always ends up being an opportunity to have a dialogue when we pull out the comics, because we go to comic conventions, people come by, they say, what's your comic about? And then we say, hey, you know, this is a natural expansion on what we've already written. So all of these guys behind me that you see, all these superheroes are just a half what we have in our stable of novels. So we decided, hey, you know what? If you come to the table and we talk about comics, we're going to tell you about, you know, the Cape being the 4th book in the 4th book essentially in the series, but in comic form. So you'll get books 1, 2, and 3 of the Cape, with Infinity 7 being a 3rd part of that. And if you buy the entire set, you'll get the 3 books in the comic. You know, we did the same thing with like Metatron. You know, we got the Metatron comics sitting there. If you buy the 4 books, your 5th book is essentially the comic. So, you know, there were a lot of people who, you know, I mean, let's try the comic, but the majority of people bought the entire series. And that's why we were so excited, because we're giving fans an opportunity to try something new to hear voices that they may have not been exposed to yet in the indie realm. And so everybody's just been really coming on board with the vision of what I had. And it has been like just uber successful on the ground at these conventions. So now we're just trying to figure out, hey, what can we do next to really get people involved on the online and start to come and find out what we're about. Come to the website, see the things that we're offering, and get a really good idea about Cosby Media Productions. Now, the problem is, when you sell people straight on with talking, you can tell them everything about what you're doing. And you don't really get that opportunity on the website. It's just silent. It's imagery. And you're hoping that people really, really get it by just seeing it. So it's a little bit of a different animal than when you can actually sit down and answer questions when people come to the table. So that's where we're working now. But I mean, the success of the comics has really been far and beyond what I imagined it would be, as far as just really being a great talking point to pique the interest of people in the stories that we're telling in novel form. And then they're coming and they're buying the entire thing. So we've really, really been pleased with the results of that.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'll say, I mean, as a fan walking through a con, you see all the indie creators, and, you really are, if it's something that you are not familiar with, you are taking a chance on something.
Right.
And part of that with comics, drawing new people in, comics is a visual medium. So, and I will say, everything of you guys' work that I've seen, like, it looks professional. So
Thank you.
That that'll immediately grab people and say, oh, well, that looks cool, let's check that out.
Right. Well, that was my goal, is to so we've been indie publishing since 2011 with novels. So my thing is always try to do what they call industry standard, no matter what. The books should look and feel like the big five. The formatting should be right. The editing should be the best as you can get with editing, and the stories should follow a 3-act structure that leads the reader into another book and another book if you're doing a series. So I've really been a stickler with that, and I didn't want to slack on that when it came to the comics as well. So finding the right artist to commission for the work with the vision of what the author had for the characters and what they should look like was really important. And then also, once we get into the work and they start doing the pencils, or the storyboarding, is the storyboarding correct for the vision of the author, and then letting the pencils come in play, and then the ink work, and then finally the colors and the letters, and then even editing that to make sure that the editing is correct with all the bubbles and the dialogue and things like that, so things aren't off. So we really put a great effort into trying to set a standard that we've seen in comics, so that when people do come to the table, you're exactly right. People are like, man, this stuff looks really good. I think they're surprised a lot of times, because the indie scene, you can get some, I've sat at tables with other indie creators who had stuff, and I've supported them. I bought their stuff, and, I'm flipping through it going, I support, but you got
quality is all over the place,
right? And you get stuff like they let things be cut off on their pages. Well, the printer just messed up, and I'm like, no, well, I couldn't have sold that if that's what happened. So hats off to them. I know it's a struggle for everybody, but I really try to be a stickler that when people pick up our comics, I want them to enjoy what we're giving them, and I want them to say exactly what you said. Man, it looks really good. So hopefully that attracts them back to the novel, so they can get a good foundation of the origin stories.
Yeah. So what have you found, being a publishing company that really focused on novels in the beginning, and now you've branched out and you're doing your comics, what have you found to be maybe the most difficult thing in creating comics for you as a creator? It's a very different medium from novel writing.
It is, but let me tell you, Steve, it has really rejuvenated my love for writing. It really, really has, because there was research that went into it. It wasn't just like grab a comic and just write some stuff and figure it out. It was research. What do these panels look like? How much can I stretch the artist to really, really push that panel and have those characters kind of even come out of the panel sometimes, or where do I draw their eye? There was research. There was books that I read as resources to learn the art of comic book making, you know, and you have to really kind of hone in. And I'm a stickler for structure, you know, having written novels, screenplays, and then comics. It was actually a very nice transition for me because you can still get that 3-act structure in a comic, but the challenge is getting it all in just 22 pages, 24 pages or whatnot. And finding that way to say, okay, look, when they turn to this page, is there a big event that I need their eye to immediately be drawn to? Or am I just going to kind of move them from left to right down the page? And then I hold maybe that last panel where there's maybe somebody reaching for the door. And then when you turn the page, boom, it's almost like an explosion on the page that draws your eye to the center with some of the smaller panels and then some on the bottom. So all of that is really, it's about being intentional with the writing of the comic script, and then having the right artist, like I said, you know, knowing their style, kind of looking at it and going, you know what, I think that after talking to the author, this is the type of style that they need for their comic, you know, and just putting these teams together. And it's been fantastic. I mean, we've had a great time. But as far as for me, I've written my 3rd comic script, and I feel like I'm just getting warmed up. I feel like I'm just getting better. I'm churning them out in a way that the consistency of my writing in the novels is carrying over into the comics. So you're still going to get those twists. You're still going to get those things that make you think a little bit. But now I get to be a director of a movie, per se, where I'm constantly drawing your eye on this page, and I'm being very tactful about it, you know. And everybody, the way I sell my comics, Steve, is just simple. They come over to Cape, I open the Cape up right to the middle. It just happened the way that we wrote the midpoint in the Cape, it lands exactly in the middle of the comic, and it's the 2 most beautiful pages in the comic to me. And I just go, yeah, you know, we had Bruno Abdias did the work on the art, and here you go. And I just hand it to them with those 2 pages open, and people go, wow, you know, and then they normally buy it if I can get them just to read those 2 pages or at least look at their artwork, you know. So the challenge has been, as novelists, all of us trying to cram all of this into that many pages, because it's not a whole lot when you talk about an author who can churn out 100,000 words, 50,000 words or whatever, and give you books that can be anywhere between 2 to 300 pages. Now you're asking them to get into 22. It's quite a challenge. I finished my 3rd comic script, and I have a very talented artist named Daniel Max who's working on that right now. And that was the continuum of the Steel Rain novel that I wrote, which is this bounty hunter who kind of an extension of the sci-fi trilogy that I wrote with the Star-Crossed Saga. I introduced the bounty hunter in the 3rd book, Solstice, and then I was like, man, I really need to give him his own story. So I wrote that last year. Pandemic kind of killed everything because I couldn't really go to the conventions like I wanted, but I still sold it very well. But when I was thinking about what I was going to do next, I was like, man, you know what? I want to kind of give readers a snapshot of that transition between that 3rd book and that trilogy, and Steel Rain starting his journey in the Flight of the Conchord. So what I did is I basically gave you that in the comic. So now what we did, and the story was too big, I couldn't even cram it in and do it justice in the 22 pages. So this one's actually going to be a 27-page comic. And it was just so much action. I really wanted to kind of give people that look of Steel Rain as this badass bounty hunter who, you know, he's really tactful, but he can also go there and just take people out, you know. So it's a really fantastic piece that I've worked on. And again, just talking about being proud of the work that's coming together with the artist, Daniel just jumped right in, and his eye and his way of capturing my vision on those pages has been phenomenal. So that's something that we'll be releasing, you know, early next year.
Awesome. Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about your panel layouts and everything. David Mack always said that the magic of the page happens between the panels, you know, in the gutter, because your mind has to make the progression from panel to panel And so that's the true magic of the page. And not everybody can do that, consistently or do it well. So,
right. And then, and there's so much, like you say, you talk about those gutters, the things that are lost in the gutter that you have to help the reader interpret. Sometimes you lose time. What happens in that little bit of space. I see the character here and I see them there. And if I've told the story correctly, I can convey the absence or the loss of time, or I can speed things up, based on just that little space in that gutter. So respecting the entire page of the comic has really been the journey for me of really like not wasting a single panel. When I see some of the indie comics, to your point, Metalhead, they all have like 4 panels on one page. And I think to myself, what a waste. You know what I mean? You're trying to tell a story. You need to be getting at least 5 to 7. And if you get the right artist, the artists don't shy away from that. They're not intimidated by that. They'll go with those 5 to 7 panels per page. Because again, if you got 5 panels times 20, that's 100 panels of storytelling. If you've got 5 times 22, 110. If you got 7 times 20, now you're up to 140 panels of storytelling, So with screenwriting, it's like there shouldn't be any wasted scenes in a screenplay. So if you got 40 scenes in one screenplay, don't waste them. Don't waste the viewer's time by looking at something that has nothing to do with the overall story. Same way with those panels. In my mind, each of my panels has to count and it has to mean something,
I like what you're saying there about the panel count. And I would say for me, as a lifelong comics fan, I would say don't be afraid to go either way with that, more or less, because just let the story dictate it and the flow and all of that. I immediately, I have a comic that comes to mind that I will not name because this is not nice. But it was a mini series and the flow of it was just bizarre. It was like the whoever laid it out or wrote it, or I don't know who was responsible for it ultimately, but the flow was just weird.
Really?
And it totally threw, the story wasn't terrible, but it just threw it off completely. Like somebody didn't know what they were doing.
So was it too many panels, you thought, or not enough, or just the direction was crazy?
It was more like, a lot of times when you're reading the comics, like you'll get down to the bottom of the page and either that is like the end of that scene or like the last panel will lead you to turn. I gotta turn the page. And it was like, they weren't doing that. It was like the scene would end in like the middle of the page. And it just threw the whole flow of the book off. It was just weird.
Yeah. And I can respect what you're saying too, because I did have a couple of panels. Whenever I write the script, if I get to a page and I'm like, all we need to show is this, I'll show maybe like 3 panels. But I tell the artist in the notes, I say, this needs to look like a beautiful painting at this point. If I'm just gonna give you 1 or 2 or 3, I've got that real big main one, and it needs to look like something I'm gonna go frame. If you were to just take it out of there by itself, because again, that's being intentional. I want you to take in what is happening to these characters on the page. So I think there's just finding that balance. But if I just see 4 panels, it's so boring to your eye. You know what I mean? You're just like, okay, next page. And you've got to give them something. And I'm always thinking like, what's coming up next? And I've gone back and rewritten a page because I know what I need to show on the next page, and it wasn't leading up to that effectively. I'm like, oh man, this is where, especially like in Broken, this is where the zombies come out. I got to have a good lead into this. You know what I mean? So I don't want to introduce, I've got 5 panels. I don't want to introduce the zombie on the 5th panel. That's a waste, I want them on that next page. We're already there,
Yeah, varying the layout really. It kind of keeps your attention and breaks up the monotony and that kind of thing. I like to see that myself.
No, and it changes the pacing of the story too.
Yes.
Right.
Lemire's kind of famous sometimes for having the same panel 4 times in a row down the page, and it just stops everything that goes on, and you just focus on Tales from the Farm. There's a scene at the table with his with the guy who's taking care of him, and the little boy, and there's just no dialogue. It's complete silence, and it's the same thing. It's dark, but it puts you in the scene, you know. And so those are kind of important too. So yeah, the variation is really awesome. Before we jump into your new one, is there anything that you learned in the making of these first 4?
You know, the whole thing was a learning process for sure. You know, the transition of the stuff that I talked about earlier. But I would say, to me, the biggest thing I learned was that you really can't anticipate how it's all going to come together page by page. You really got to have to see that thing to unfold like in front of you, you know? So, you know, I mean, like, you know, we can look at like the pictures that they send you, and, you know, you're looking at these things on computers, and they have a certain amount of brilliance with the pictures and the colors and the vibrance and things. And then you'll get them on your phone sometime from the artist, and you're like, oh, that looks great. You know, I've learned to blow them up a little bit, you know, because I'm going to get a page, a full 8x10 at some point in this comic, you know. So I started taking the images that they would send me, and I would blow them up just to catch the fine detail. My wife does marketing for a living, so she's really helping with like editing, like seeing things that are not right, or even applauding some of the efforts of the artists on the page. And we talk about consistency, and like something that Daniel was doing that I thought was just amazing. I had one scene with Steel Rain, with the one he's working on now, where he put a little bottle in the back table, like, you know, they were drinking. The two characters were exchanging a drink, and he had put the bottle on the table. When we went to the next page, they were starting to argue. The bottle stayed on the table, and he was just so consistent in the panels not to lose where the bottle was, and even had the smallest little detail. You know, he made up like a little label, a little fake label for what they were drinking, but he was so consistent, and we never lost it in those panels. So that's the type of stuff and the detail that I'm asking the artists to come up with, and choosing the right artist is so important. If they really love what they do, they're going to do those things. I didn't even ask him to put a bottle in there, but he was like, okay, the conversation's over, the bottle's here, and it stayed, you know. So really pairing up the right artists with the right vision and the type of genre that they do. Because, you know, if I want sci-fi, I went and sought Daniel out because I saw he had a portfolio of sci-fi, you know, comics. You know, if I'm looking for superhero, what have you done with superheroes? What kind of superheroes did you do? What was the style? You know, when I had zombies, I went with Rom because he had done some things that looked a little over the edge, a little bizarre. And I thought that would play very well with Broken. So just picking the right artist is probably the most crucial part of the development of the comic itself. But your story is where your foundation is. Your story just has to be good, regardless of how good or bad the artwork is.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. All right. So let's move into Broken. And I promise this is going to work. Let's check out. Don't laugh, Monday. I'm serious this time. It's going to work. Here's the Kickstarter page. And here's the video. And are you ready? Very nice.
Looks great.
So who made the little video for you? Because that's,
we have
that's a lot of
in-house.
extra work. Okay.
Yeah, we have in-house video people who put that together for us.
Very cool. So, I mean, we got the gist, like a very basic version of that.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of tell us a little bit about the origin, obviously the novel and the comics.
So you guys are going to love this. So one thing I always tell people, don't mess with creatives. True creatives cannot be limited. They're going to grow, they're going to expand, and they're going to do their own thing. When I first started doing, when I first got Starchild Comics off the ground, and we start out with social media presence and all that, people just kind of come at you. They'll DM you, say, hey, I do this, I do that. I do art, I write, where can I fit in for what you guys are doing? So we were doing that, and I was entertaining quite a few people. And then this one guy came along, and he had a zombie comic, and he was like, I want to give you guys my zombie comic to publish. And I'm like, it's complete? He's like, yeah. So he sends it to me, and I thumbed through it, and I was like, oh man, this is gonna be great. We're gonna have 4 superhero comics. We're gonna have a zombie comic all our own. This is fantastic. And I told him everything about the rights and everything that we would do with obtaining the work and putting it out. And then he said, okay, send me the contract. Send it to him. I noticed it was like real delayed getting back. I started emailing him, hey, what's going on? And all of a sudden he came back. He's like, I've decided that I need $10,000 from you for this comic. Right.
Wow.
Metalhead almost choked.
Wow.
So, and then on top of it, he said he needed royalties for the comics that I sold. And I'm like, nobody knows this comic. Why would I give you $10,000 for it, So he said, but you're probably not going to do that, are you? I said, you're exactly right. And then he went about his way. So now I'm sitting here like bummed. I'm like, man, I really wanted a zombie comic for our line, And I remember I was in God just kind of talking to me like, Braxton, you were just finishing up Broken, which is the novel that I wrote. Said, just write your own comic expansion off of that. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do that, So basically what I did, essentially Broken is this dystopian future where there's all out nuclear war at some point. And like 70% of the population of the world is decimated. 30% live. Most of those who kind of survive the fallout, when they breathe in the ashes and everything, they turn into zombies. We call them ashers. And then another part of the population has kind of taken it upon themselves, this government group called the establishment, because money doesn't mean anything anymore at this point. So they use people as currency. So they set up these slave camps. People who don't have enough money or resources to fight back, they take you in, they make you work the land, and then they trade you among these districts in the United States and some across the world as well. So everybody has now flocked to the coastal parts of all the continents just to kind of get as much fresh water as they can and resources, because the middle has now become more of an area called the Deadlands. Everything has died off. There's no vegetation. There's still a lot of the fallout there and whatnot. And those who are in these slave camps are just kind of just sitting back, waiting for something to happen. And slowly but surely, they're starting to hear rumblings of this resistance group that's starting to fight against the establishment. There's another faction of people who are kind of like the whole Mad Max thing. They're called hoarders, and they basically just scour the land and just steal resources. They run into you, they'll kill you. They're just wild, And so as a slave, you've got to deal with the establishment, setting up everything. And you also have to deal with the hoarders. But then beyond that, now you got to deal with ashers too. So it almost doesn't make any sense to run. If you're a slave, at least they're feeding you every day. It's obviously a terrible thing to be enslaved, but at the same time, what's your options, So a lot of people have just become very discouraged, and they just kind of go along with the flow. Well, enter our main protagonist. Her name is Kisa Donovan. She's a 16-year-old girl. She's lost her father and her mother. She lost her mother years before the fallout, but then she lost her dad right during the events. And her uncle, Raymond, took her and her brother and they ran, and then eventually got caught when everything started happening with the establishment setting up their own government. They became enslaved. So she's been working in this settlement for quite a while, and her brother's like 9 years old, and she has now taken it upon herself to, hold on, my cameras need another adjustment here, that she's going to find out what's going on with this resistance. And there's a couple of events that lead her to that I won't share with you guys here, but then she finally makes a decision she's going to go for it. And the key is when she gets out, what happens then, you know? So I kind of give you a nice, rich storyline in book one of all of her background. I really, everything's told through a first person perspective of Kisa. So you're really in her mind the whole time. There's a little bit of young adult romance in there as well. But you get this full picture of her world and this character, this panoramic view of everything that she's gone through. And I tell people, you know, Broken is really an emotional story. It's very, very strong. There's a lot of things that play into Kisa's life that have shaped her. And I really wanted to make sure I captured that as much as possible based on raising three girls myself. So I really kind of, and they're all in different ages. You know, I got a 19-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 9-year-old. So I really tried to encapsulate all of those emotions and put them into this one character. And then, you know, how is it that she becomes this mother figure to her younger brother as well? So I really dive into all of that. There are good people on both sides with the establishment. There are some people who do want to still help and don't think this is the right thing to do. But the mystery is, in the background is, how did this all happen anyway? When did this start? And you know, who pushed the button first for the war to go the way it did? And we do get to the point where there's a lot of twists, and it gets you to the end where it does end with a cliffhanger. And that's exactly where I start the comic. So the comic starts right where we leave off with that last scene. And then the comic, because I didn't explore as much with the Asher's lore as much as possible in the first book. I really focused more on Kisa, the establishment, and the hoarders. We really get a great in-depth kind of review of what the hoarders are about, how they're established and what they do. And quite different from what you anticipate when you first are introduced to them. But in this comic, I said it's zombie time, so we kind of go full throttle with the zombies as those characters continue to try to progress to meet up with the resistance. So there's a lot of great action in there. But what I challenged Rom, the artist, the most with is a lot of these close-up shots on these panels, because like I said, the story was very emotional in the book, in the novel. When we transitioned to the comic, I need to still convey that type of energy and that type of intensity. So we really have a lot of close-up shots, a lot of shoulder up shots, and the angles that we took in this comic were really crazy, because we wanted to always be conscientious of a dialogue and a conversation. If one character was talking to another, we shot things from a floor up kind of worm view, sometimes to really convey the intensity of the one character talking down to the other one. Sometimes we do wide shots, and we even spoke from panel to panel, which really ended up being really cool, because you can get this side shot of one character looking this way, and you get another side shot of the other character looking this way, and you can see the intensity in the dialogue. So that was definitely something that I was intentional about when I wrote the script for Rom to do. And when we finally got it all together with the color, I feel as if like, hey, that guy who came along with that comic, that zombie comic, not even close, So kind of checked off the box, basically obliterated his efforts of trying to get me to pay $10,000 for something when I could just do it myself. And I think Broken being my 17th novel that I've written, my challenge is always trying to write my next favorite book. And I think in a lot of ways, I think I was able to accomplish that with Broken. So it's something that's very special to me. So I dedicated that book to my 3 girls. And I'm really excited about what's going to happen with the comic, because I think the comic covers came out phenomenal.
Hey, real quick question about that. So you got the novel, the first is book 1 or whatever, and then the second is a comic. So
Right.
a person coming in who hasn't read the novel, what is the experience like reading the comic? Because one of the complaints, is, readership is supposedly going down with comics or whatever, which I don't necessarily believe, but they always say, well, it's too hard for kids to get into because there's too much history. So is there an end to this comic if you haven't read the novel?
So what we have to do as writers, when we do this with sequels and things like that as well. Oh, let me make an adjustment here on this. This is getting annoying.
I don't think it's as bad as you think it is.
It's annoying to me. So what we have to do with books, right? So say, for instance, I try to get you guys to pick up the Star-Crossed Saga. It's 3 books. The challenge is, I may be at a convention and I'm down to only the 2nd and 3rd book. First book sells out, and you go, well, if I pick up, or like a lot of times what happens is I'm here with the comics, and I'll have the comic of the Cape, and you've got 3 books sitting over there. They go, well, can I read the comic, or am I going to be lost? So there is a little bit of, okay, when I write this comic, I'm going to write it enough in itself to be a standalone that you can read it. But man, you're going to really want to go back and get the origin story of how we even got here. So we have to be very kind of inventive and making sure that when we write this story, those elements have to be in place, that the characters are defined enough in this little snapshot that people are going to be entertained enough to say, yeah, I do want to go back. Because essentially, I want you to read both of them, But I think I've given you enough in the comic that you could just pick it up and be like, man, that was a great comic. Now, by the way, I'm going to go back and pick up the book because I really want to see how this all started,
Yeah, that's okay. That answers it. I just, I know that's kind of a complaint, and I think readers who are good readers can pick up on enough that they don't necessarily need. And like, you can enjoy a Batman comic without having read 1,000 issues of Detective,
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. So, if you do 3-act structure, it kind of goes in the way of, I introduce you to the character's world in Act 1. This is the world. If it's technology, if it's a timepiece, I'm giving you all of that in the beginning. I then introduce you to the main protagonist in their world. Like, what is that world like? Well, the person is in a world where nothing is wrong, or everything is wrong. And then there has to be something called an inciting incident that makes that character move on the journey. Now, normally what happens is, as that character is moving, there's a part in Act 1 where it's called the debate. Like, I'm not going to do that. I tell people the easiest way to think about it, if you're a Star Wars fan, it was Luke Skywalker. We introduced you to his world. You knew what was going on in Star Wars and A New Hope. And then all of a sudden, Uncle Owen and his aunt are killed. And Obi-Wan just comes and says, you need to go with me, if you're going to learn the ways of the Force. There's a debate. I can't do that. I can't do this. And then when he sees his uncle and everybody's dead, then he decides to go on a journey. So once you go into that journey, you now move officially into Act 2. And Act 2 is all about, we as the audience, hopefully, Act 1 has kind of shown you that there's a goal, what they're moving towards, this whole inciting incident. And Act 1 is just all about all the trial and error. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. It's not working. Let me try something else. Then you get to midpoint where there's like a fake win or loss. Like, you think, oh man, this is it. It's over. And maybe that's not the case. And then there's a part right towards the end of Act 2 where I call it like the come to Jesus moment, because you haven't accomplished what you need. You can either walk away from this now, or you can continue to go. And normally it's a retooling. Like, none of this is working. Let's try this now. So now we're going to set up this Hail Mary pass. And then the characters now, after that debate, go into Act 3. And then that's when you finally meet the antagonist, or whatever it is that they've been opposed to. And then once they accomplish that, then you get a new world. So that opposes the world we started off with, So at the end of Star Wars, it was like, now we've got all this hope. where there was a lot of despair, you know, for Luke Skywalker. So if you do that in any book or any comic, the person will still have this full picture and this full story within itself. And now the challenge is, do I want to go back and get more from what happened in the beginning, or do I just keep moving it from here and I don't really care? And if you've done it the right way, people are going to say, no, I need to know what else happened in the beginning. I need to really see that, you know? And that's how they got us with Star Wars, right? They started us with 4, 5, and 6. And then they said, hey, we're going to do the prequel. Well, everybody who was a fan of 4, 5, and 6 is going to see the prequels. You know, it's no way to get around that because you really enjoyed the story they already laid out to you.
Yeah. Well, I'm a literature major and I taught English for years, so you just passed. Good work.
Thank
That
you.
was textbook. Way to go.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I had a question about I guess zombies in general and trying to, you know, build on your fan base. You know, you've done all of this stuff with superheroes for, you know, however many years you were working on that. So zombies is obviously a different animal a little bit. And, you know, I'm a huge horror movie fan, and zombies have kind of, you know, they're always there. Their
Right.
popularity, just like anything, kind of ebbs and flows.
Mhm.
We've had years and years of The Walking Dead now. So what do you have a plan to kind of try to reach those fans, like horror fans, zombie fans, Walking Dead fans? Like what are you guys doing to try to catch some of those, bring them in?
Right. Well, I think you know, to me, it was so amazing. The Walking Dead was such an amazing work because the zombies were always just in the background. You know,
Yes.
you start off thinking it's zombies, and you think that that's the main story. That's not the main story. It's these characters that we have connected with. You know. And then the zombies, oh, don't forget the zombies are here. You know, we're just trying to figure out, you know, it was like man versus man and man versus the unknown for so long. And it's like, but don't forget the zombies are here, you know. So when you finally breathe easy and you're not thinking about it, and the character walks in the house and he's like, oh, I'm here. And all of a sudden the zombie goes, rah. You know, it's like, oh my God, I forgot we were still dealing with zombies, you know. So they're this imminent threat that's always here, and you know they're here. But you dive into the characters and you're really more concerned about their lives. And then all of a sudden a zombie pops out. So that's what we kind of did. You know, don't forget along the way, this story of Broken is about it's a survival story. It's a little bit of coming of age as well. And then there's a kind of a whodunit, you know, because who started all this and why? And then as those answers start to unfold, it's like, oh, don't forget the zombies are here too. You know, so they'll always pop out. And what I did is I ended up towards the end of when the comic comes to the end, it's another cliffhanger because I finally reveal my twist on zombies, because I'm not going to just give you the same zombies as everybody else. You know, I'm going to give you something to make you think like, oh, now this is actually a little bit even scarier now, because how the zombies work in this comic are totally different from any other zombies that we've operated with before. So I would say that that's my way of doing it, is to give you something different with zombies than what you've seen so far. And so not to give anything away, I think it's really, that was my focus, was to say, man, what can I give them with zombies that's different? And I actually didn't get it until I wrote the comic, because I was working with it through the novel. And like I said, the main focus was really the main characters, obviously the establishment and the main antagonist who runs that, at least at the level that they are right now with the settlements, and then the hoarders. And then when I got into the comics, it finally just popped. It was that light bulb moment, like, oh, this is amazing. This is going to be great. And when people have read both books 1 and 2, they're going to be waiting to see which way we go with it after this, because I think it really ended up finishing out pretty nice.
Is the plan then to move forward with comics for this story?
You know, so I'll tell you, Steve, our thing is, like, I've challenged the writers, because we all just write and we're trying to figure out what we're doing next. Like, where do we go? Where do you want to go next? So I just asked him, what's the next one? You know, I said, so Keyshawn Dodds has written Menzuo, and he's finishing up his 5th book of Menzuo now, 5th novel. and because he did 4, then he did the comic. He's finishing up 5. He told me I'm going back to comics, so we're kind of jumping back and forth. I haven't really determined yet what path I'm going to do with Broken for book 3 quite yet. I just haven't come to that yet, because I just think that I've never dropped simultaneously a book and a comic at the same time, so this is going to be new territory for me. So I'm going to kind of just let the readers and the fans dictate it, to be quite honest, because again, I'm just a writer. It doesn't matter what I'm writing. I may give you a book, I may give you a novella, and I may jump you back to a comic again. I may do a graphic novel. Who knows? Sky's the limit.
How long until we get a crossover of every property in one book together?
See, now you're stealing my thunder, but we're close, because remember, I wrote the Star-Crossed Saga books 1, 2, and 3. The main protagonist was William Deary, who was a prince bounty hunter who came to Earth on a mission, and I crossed him over into Infinity 7, the novel. He pops up at the end, and then I pick up Cape Hellfire, the comic, right in the beginning, and I introduce you guys to William Deary there. So that was like our first crossover, and I was real nervous about it. Like, oh man, I hope this doesn't come out like kind of unraveling everything else that I'm doing, because I still have to have this consistent universe throughout everything. Because when we talk about the dedicated superhero universe, you can kind of categorize William as a superhero, essentially. So Steel Rain, he's in that universe, but he could easily come to Earth and help out with what some of the superheroes here are dealing with. And we always kind of deal with space pirates in a lot of our fiction. So that's there. Menzuo had space pirates since book 1. And then, I dealt with space pirates with Steel Rain in his story. And so now, as I'm writing the outline for book 2 with Infinity 7, we're bringing the space pirates all the way through. So yeah, it's wide open. I don't know in the time period if they'll actually come into Broken, because I think that the time periods are a little bit different. And we have a decimated Earth at this point, which we don't have in Starcrossed. So I don't think I can do that. We have Chicago. We've got a world still put together in all the superhero stories. So I don't think Broken to do it. But you never know, we always multiverse is always there. Yep. So
well, you can connect them too in a way where whatever is taking place, like quote unquote now, you can start laying seeds for that future.
Absolutely.
And on that note, I have a question about expanding, into other media. Have you considered doing like either audio books, like audio versions, or adapting into audio dramas, or even creating brand new audio dramas? Or have you thought about that at all?
So all of our books are on audiobook already.
Okay.
So we do have all of those. And I have heard a lot of those where you just take a cast of people and they read. I would love to do something like that. I mean, I think right now, but for me to do it the way I want to, because obviously I've done some acting as well, my wife does as well, we'd have to come up with like our little team of people who don't mind putting the time into doing that. Sure. Because it would be very labor intensive in the editing. It gets a little bit of a headache. So to get those resources in place the way I want, I would have to have moved already beyond this probably. But I would say the next challenge I would throw on myself, as crazy as it is, would probably do a graphic novel. So that's where I would like to see us go, really. But I still believe that, we're a hybrid publisher. We do books and novels, books and comics. And that's why, Cosby Media Productions, the comic imprint is Starchild Comics, but we still publish, we still got more books coming out this year. So we're book publishing first, along with what we do with comics. And we didn't want to tell separate stories of comics that had nothing to do. We wanted both of them to kind of cross over. So we believe that nobody's really doing that as much. The big publishers, of course, they have that. You've had Star Wars stories, you've had Star Wars comics, you've had movies, but in the indie scene, nobody's really been that bold. But that's where we started, so our roots are novelists, and now we're starting to be comic script writers too. So it was a natural transition for all of us.
Where are the audiobooks available?
On Audible.
Okay.
Yep, jump right on Audible.
Hey, Braxton, I tell you what, right when we get off this tonight, I will support your Kickstarter if you do me one favor.
What is that?
In your next issue of Broken, you have to have Metalhead Monday get eaten by a zombie.
That's
then
easy.
I'm in.
That's easy. People getting eaten up is easy. Making them super. I've had people say, "Put me as a superhero." I'm like, well, you know, I don't know if I can do that, you know. But yeah, Metalhead, you consider it done. He will be eaten up.
I'm supporting tonight.
Yeah, I see what you think of me there, buddy.
Well, I mean, listen, to be put into a comic, novel, movie, you become immortalized. You know, you got to think of it that way. That's the way I look at it. Like, they can never take you out again.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Monday.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
Trying to make you a star.
Right.
Oh, goodness gracious. So what are you most excited about this?
With Broken?
Yeah, this whole thing with Kickstarter. What are you just totally jazzed about?
I'm really, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I'm a comic book fan myself, and I think I sent you the picture, Steve, in an email. You can probably put it up. The cover, the cover for Broken, the comic, is just amazing.
Oh, that's
is just I sent you a new email, but this is a comic page. This is one of the initial comic pages for Broken, as we start off with the main character Kisa having some flashbacks of some of the scenes that happened in the novel. So again, we talk about that continuum of story. I intentionally put this stuff to introduce you to her world that she's already just left out of the novel, and then boom, where is she now? Is what those readers are gonna anticipate seeing. So,
okay, I'm looking.
But I sent you the covers, yeah. So I'm excited about getting my own copy of Broken the comic. The novel, the cover on the novel, I had an artist who worked on that, digital artist, and that was he just nailed it. So that was phenomenal. But when Rom put my idea together for the cover for Broken with the comic, with the reflection of the dagger, I mean, he just killed it. And I can't wait to get my own copy. You know, I love to see my art come in. I like to see my books come in whenever we make our books. Whenever we publish books for all of our authors, I order them. So just for my own sake, just to have my own copies of them, and I put them up on my shelf. So I can't wait to see what Broken looks like as a full comic.
Okay, let me look at this guy here.
Those covers were in your Kickstarter video, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've got him here. Let's see. Stop screen. I want to do a new share screen and pick the new.
The banner off too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're getting awful pushy, Monday. You're taking this whole thing a little too seriously about being eaten by a zombie.
We need to make sure you see the whole picture when you put it up there. I'm trying to help.
Now I gotta. Oh, there it is, right there. Okay, let's share this and see what happens. All right, you ready? There it is. That's what you're talking about.
So that's the Broken. That's the novel cover for Broken. You see, we've got Kisa on the front. If you look in the back there, especially on the Kindle version, you can see 3 characters in the back. You see the to the left. Yeah, if you back. Yeah, to the left, you can see what the hoarder looks like. The guy with the shirt off and the mask on, the leather mask and stuff like that. And then just beyond him is a zombie, one of our ashers. And then to the right is what the establishment looks like, kind of like SWAT police, you know, the enforcers that they have in there. So we kind of captured everything with, you know, the ashes that are kind of around her, the embers that are burning up. And then like the title cover, if you're looking at R, close up on that R, you could actually see a mushroom cloud, you know, from the nuclear fallout. So all of that we tried to make sure was very specific with the design of everything.
There. Does that help?
Mm-hmm.
All right. There you go. Hey, I figured it out. I think I know how to play your original video now.
Nice.
It only took an hour, but hey, you can't.
So I got the other one. You have the other one there, Steve, too, for the cover for Broken the comic?
Let's see. I think so. Oh, yeah, it is different. I thought they were the same. Okay, hold on. Let me share that one.
Check it out.
See. I was paying attention to the video, and I knew they were not the same.
Hey, Monday.
Yeah?
I can remove you from the screen. Just saying. All right. How's that?
Yep. So if you zoom in on that one, you'll see. So here we have Kisa again.
Oh, yeah, look at the knife.
Yeah, look at that dagger. She's got these blades, kunai blades that her dad taught her how to throw, and she kind of goes over that in the book. But you got the three threats in there. You got the zombie right there. You got one of the hoarders, and then in the back you kind of have the SWAT guy with the goggles on, and you just see Kisa's just angry and just ready to fight back in these shots. So I can't wait to see that comic cover. That's going to be great. That's my favorite. But like I said, joining the Kickstarter, you actually have options to pick up the other two Kickstarter exclusive. Well, one of them is a Kickstarter exclusive variant as well as the other comic also.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to stop screen. Here we go. Watch this. I'm going to do this. We're about ready to watch that first video. This is really, really exciting. Now you're going to hate me before the night's over, Monday. Okay, we're going to share those slides.
This is the logo reveal. It actually has broken in it and a page in there.
Well, there you go. Oh, that was really cool. Yeah, those covers are awesome. I love that the kunai knife and the images in there. I don't know if I didn't squeeze in if I would have noticed that immediately.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put this Kickstarter back up there because you guys need to go to Kickstarter, to Starchild Comics, the Broken Series project. And that's where you can help support a fine group making a great product and help them out because, we need more, innovators out there and we need people to get support. It's hard when you are trying to make a comic. I actually did a Kickstarter like 10 years ago and it worked for one issue. So,
yeah.
And then
and the thing is, what's great about this one, which is different from what we had when we did the first Kickstarter to get it funded for those 4 comics, is that we were in development. Like, we were like, hey, well, you fund it now in July, we'll have it out to you by March of next year.
Right.
So I get the apprehension. People might be like, well, I might not ever see this thing. But guess what? The novel is done and the comic is completely done. So once we get funded, the next month, once we get it, go to print and get the copies in our hands, you're getting your comics within the next 30 days. So that's the nice thing, is that you'll get both products sent out to you the following month, as long as we don't have any limitations with supplies and things like that.
All right. Yeah, that's really cool. And that was a lesson I learned, is you got to be finished when you put that stuff out there, so you can handle it quickly. So is there anything that we missed? Anything that anybody who might be interested in zombies, superheroes, cool novels that they would need to know to want to get into this dynamic new universe you guys are creating?
Well, I think we kind of covered everything as far as the storyline for Broken. I think it's just going to be a great. It's a great series to get into because obviously there's more to come. This is just the beginning. I made a promise to myself that I would never, for every novel I write, I'm going to have a comic companion to it, because I just think it gives, for my selfish reasons, you really become part director, part cinematographer. And so when you're really sitting down with these comic scripts, you're like thinking like, man, what can I show them now? What can I tell them now? Is always what you put in the books, and you're hoping that people can have the same imagination and see what you see. But now in the comic, you can actually serve up the visual representation of that world that they can take part in. So I personally won't ever do another series. Like I'm working on a new sci-fi series that I'm going to start. I'll have ready for next year. But again, I'm going to have a comic that kind of helps to kick that series off so that people can see things. Probably so it's a 5-book series. So for somewhere in between book 1 and 2, I'll have a comic, and then book 3 and 4, I'll probably have a comic, and 4 and 5. So I'll just keep kind of breaking them up that way. But I think that people are going to be real excited. And so if you want to be a part of what we have, we've got some fantastic, like I said, 6 authors, 17 novels of superhero fiction, along with, Broken being a part of our comic book family now. They can head on over to cosmomediaproductions.com and just click on the Starchild tab, and they'll, get a chance to really see everything that we have going on as far as these books. But, in the meantime, definitely jump on Broken. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. You can kind of be a little bit of every fan. You can like thrillers, you can like dystopian fiction, you can like young adult, coming of age, and you can also love zombies. I mean, who doesn't? You're going to get all of that in there. So I think there's a lot of rich story to be told.
Yeah, that's awesome. So everybody jump in there. I will put the links on everything as well. Hopefully we can get some support and get people to pony up some cash and get some cool product.
Yeah.
Mr. Mundy, did I miss anything?
I don't think so. This is sounds, I think all of your stuff is pretty ambitious. I mean, a series of novels and comics and tying it all together. And I wish you guys the best success, and it's a good idea.
Thank you. And the cool thing is too, with this Kickstarter that was different from the other one is that, they're very low tiered rewards. You can buy in, $5 will get you just the digital copy. You can get 10 and 12 and get the comic. You can just get one comic. You can get a combo with the comic and the novel. You can get the comic and the hardcover. You can play around with this however you want. So there's somewhere in here that you can fit in. And knowing that, for one, you're supporting us and trying to be creators that are giving people new, fresh content that's innovative and different. And it's kind of like they say in Hollywood, give me the same but different. And that's what we're doing. But also knowing that you're going to get something that's going to be tangible. And when you get it in your hand, I guarantee you're going to be satisfied and you're going to be glad that you were a part of it.
Yeah. And not only that, if you guys support this and it happens, we have a good chance of seeing Metalhead Monday eaten. So,
yeah, that's going to be, you'll go down fighting. Don't worry about it, Monday.
I would expect so.
But he has to be listening to an 80s Walkman and listening to the Backstreet Boys while he is being eaten.
Oh, so you didn't see it coming. Yeah, we could do that.
See? Now we have something.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for coming on tonight. It was a pleasure, as it was last time.
Yes.
And we will continue to support this for you.
I appreciate it.
As I said, I will go over and contribute right when we're done because I'm excited.
It. Well, I tell you, you're going to love it, Steve. I'm telling you. And I'm going to be back with Steel Rain because I'm telling you, that comic is something special. It really is. I always loved Steel Rain's story anyway with the whole bounty hunter thing. And then I kind of got a chance to, in my mind, I love Boba Fett and the Mandalorian and all of them, but they never really killed enough people. In my mind, so when you get Steel Rain, you're gonna be like, holy crap, this guy does not play, because in the book I made him more of a thinker. So in the novel he was very very much almost like a little Batman-esque, kind of detective thinker. And then here he's just like, look, I got one thing, a gun, and I need to get this mission over with, so but yeah. But I think you're gonna enjoy Broken, Steve, and I appreciate the support and even having me on the show for sure.
Absolutely. You're welcome anytime. All right, everybody. That's it for this week. And you can find Wanderings and Wool Gathering on YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify, Stitcher, CastBox, and SoundCloud. And you can find album, movie, TV, and comics reviews at wandeриngsandwoolgathering.com. See you in 2 weeks. And we're going to be handling another issue from Sandman. And I think we're also going to be reviewing the first episode. So that's going to be pretty exciting because we tried to get ahead of this so we could compare the actual books to the TV show. And so we are super stoked for that.
Very cool.
So until then, we will see you later.